I'm Jess. I have a butt ton of kids, a butt ton of businesses, and a butt ton of things to say. And this is our potty, One Girl Too Much, where we explore all of my lessons of learning to girl differently and embrace too much. And today, Alex, you're going to have to keep me calm for this one. I am riled up. We've made a radical podcast plan because today's lesson is why Big Brother is a clear and cringe example of how people have the conversation of gender roles so wrong. And for anyone who follows me on TikTok, I did an impromptu rant on TikTok, which I don't normally do, but I was due to make a TikTok. I was making dinner and this had me so frustrated. I was about to put my nipple through a cheese grater. I just had to get it out. And I'm standing there with a carrot, not realising the metaphor as I'm talking about these men with peanut-sized brains and what's dangling between their legs, waving this carrot around that I aggressively started grating. So the internet's pretty mad at me at the moment, but it has me angry, and I'm normally better at letting things go.
Well, for context, I have not seen a single thing of Big Brother, not on TV, not on TikTok, so catch me up on what's happening.
Okay, so also disclaimer, I actually haven't watched the episodes or the live stream of Big Brother, but I've seen a lot of the clips and they have gone quite viral. And the clip in particular that I'm talking about is two boys. I'm using the word boys quite intentionally, but they are men who are having a conversation about the fact that it just works when, you know, back in the 60s, the woman stayed home and looked after the children, had dinner on the table when hubby got home. Their parents were married for 60 years. Their grandmother was married for 60 years. It just works. Why is everybody trying to mess with it? And one of the girls comes along and does a beautiful job at approaching it with curiosity, which is something I think is always really important with these conversations, and says, well, hey, you know, did you think about this or why do you think that?
Yeah.
And they move on to the topic of gender roles within the workplace and why women earn less than men. And he makes a comment that that's not men's fault. We both start off at the same spot and men are naturally more competitive and assertive, and that's why they progress faster than women.
Wow.
Oh boy. And it just kind of landslided from there. And there's also a lot of other clips that talk about, you know, them referencing women as being dateable or not, and just lots of misogynistic undertones. But this clip in particular pissed me off for a couple of reasons. So I thought I would give my take on gender roles, and I do try to flirt this line really, really carefully because I don't want to become preachy. I think that's where the feminist, and we've talked about that before, the feminist conversation gets it wrong. I believe in gender roles. I believe that there are some things that women do beautifully. Yeah. We are biologically wired differently, and there's other things that men do differently, and I'm still learning and exploring a lot of what I want that to look like in my own life. But where people get it wrong is thinking one is better than the other and not understanding how women have been pigeonholed in that way. And so we're going to start off by addressing, let's go back to the 60s. And he referenced the caveman days.
Oh, God.
When the men would go hunting. And I was like, the women were gathering, actually. They were gathering as much as you were hunting just because you had the spear. But if you actually do the research, I'm not actually sure that was a thing.
Correct.
You're just attributing the fact that women did it with a baby on their boob at the same time because hear us roar.
Literally.
But he kept referencing the caveman days, and I'm not even going to acknowledge that. Let's go back to the 60s where he references. It was a very different environment.
100%. Cost of living, different.
Right? That is the point that Mr. Macho Man is missing. He's like, oh, you should just stay home. I can guarantee you he doesn't earn enough because he's made a pretty clear indicator of his education expertise in worldly views on the show, and you're on Big Brother making a twit of yourself for money. So if you're sitting there earning enough to fully financially support a double income household without the woman working, cool. Let's have a conversation.
Let's add some children to that as well.
Absolutely. So what that conversation actually turns into is do that role while you contribute financially.
Yeah.
Not if you're going to work, sure, I'll have dinner on the table, so on and so forth. Before we even open the can of worms that being a mother and a stay-at-home default parent means it's a consistent job that is more laborious than any 9 till 5 or 9 till 8 p.m. high-level job that you claim to have. Let's not even go there. You don't earn enough. So until men earn enough to do that, let's not even have that conversation, because I love how that is left out of their rants all the time, you cannot financially support your future wife and child, God help whoever they might be. Sorry, I'm going to do better. I'm being a bad human. I'm being a little bit derogatory towards him and I don't want to. But that is such an important factor. You don't earn enough to have traditional gender roles. And when the war happened and there was many significant historical events that changed the trajectory of women, right from wearing pants when we had to go and do traditional male jobs to the cost of living means that my mum stayed home on and off throughout my childhood.
Yeah.
But there is no way over 90% of Australians can survive on a single income household.
Absolutely not.
So whilst the earning roles have changed and that's become very normal,
The cost of living is severely increased.
only getting worse.
Absolutely.
Most incomes aren't surviving with double income.
No, I agree.
Yeah, so
100%.
we've evolved the conversation of how normal it is now for women to work. It's an expectation for women to work, but nobody talks about the home making gender work.
No. Well, let's go back to actual facts. What are the difference between men and women?
So when we have a look at some of the biological things, there are some key things that have really helped me to understand. Now, obviously, as always, I want to preface, I'm not a medical doctor or a scientist, but this is very readily information, and it's a very bird's eye view of the fact. So we want to have a look at testosterone versus estrogen is the biggest conversation. Women have estrogen, and annoyingly that makes us care about things and people.
Too much sometimes.
Too much. A little bit too much. But some would say that it's also a superpower. We generally can be more verbally fluent. We can articulate emotions. We're better at social bonding. We're better at emotional attunement, whether that's to client, team, staffs, environments, social factors. We can be more creative through that. Whereas testosterone is what correlates to risk-taking, assertiveness, and competitive nature. But this is what people don't understand, is that most women have the same amount of testosterone as men. It's just cyclical. So we have an estrogen-heavy and like progesterone/testosterone-heavy part of our cycle. Men have testosterone all the time and often blame it for dungbat behaviour.
But this is why we are so agile, because we have both.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's clinical. So when we then have a look at the way that changes our stress response, women will tend to approach it from an emotive place. So in my world of being a multi-business owner, sometimes that hurts us. We lead with emotion and sometimes that really helps us and it allows us to build longevity in teams. Teams led by women often have higher staff retention, both in male and female categories, and can pioneer spaces and things like that. Whereas men have different stats around that. However, it also means that it can affect us different ways. And I see this a lot in politicians. Journalists know how to get an emotional response out of women. And the second a woman gets emotional, it's like she doesn't know what she's talking about anymore. We don't hear her words anymore. Whereas it also can empower people. And I think of Julia Gillard's space when she got emotional, and I loved seeing that. And I think a lot more men could learn about getting emotional. Whereas men tend to go into more of a fight or flight. And in sometimes, you know, if a building is burning down, a bit of fight or flight's really helpful over emotion. When we have a look at things like surgeons, traditionally men handle the emotional capacity, I'm not going to say better, but I'm going to say differently. They can compartmentalize. They see blood vessels, stats, statistics. We see fathers, sons, daughters, wives on that table. So, and I'm talking very stereotypically here. So there are very real ways that testosterone versus estrogen can help. But lastly, when we have a look at our brain network tendencies very broadly, and this is where problem solving is such a superpower, because we tend to lean towards connectivity and collaboration in problem solving and support that with more emotion and reasoning, whereas men will go more focused and linear processing. And when we have a look at the way that workplaces are built, they are built for men to succeed in every single one of those categories. Every HR book is built around a man's brain. Every business project book is built around a man's brain. And it was a huge part of my journey in starting my networking events was it's not a conversation of which is better or worse. They both have pros and cons. But all we know about business is what men does. But furthermore, all we know about medicine is based on a men's body. So when we're looking at these conversations, and specifically he said, we both start at the same spot. No, we don't, buddy. This is the light bulb you all need to have. When you enter an office, the air temperature that the room is sent in is built on a male body. When you get into a car, the safety protocols are tested on a male's body. When you put on safety equipment, that is built for a male's body. Did you know it? Okay, I'm ranting now, but let me go. 1993 was the first year that it was mandatory to include a single female in medical research studies to become verified. I was 4 years old. What we don't know about women's bodies is astronomically scary. It's terrifying. And we are playing catch up. The vitamins you buy off the shelf, built for men. Cancer treatment, tested on men. Heart attack treatment, tested on men. We are not starting at the same spot. Then you have a look at the fact that the traits that determine whether or not you're successful are positive for you, negative for me. If I'm assertive or confident, I'm a bitch. Straight away, just because I have a vagina. If you're assertive and confident, you're successful and I want to follow you and wolf pack bands around you.
Yeah.
And I've never seen that more in my life than in this season. I've just launched my 4th business. I'm TikToking more than ever. I've launched this podcast. I'm talking about money. People are getting angry about it and keep telling me I've got enough.
How dare you?
How dare I?
How dare you?
Absolutely.
Stay in your
greedy.
box.
I'm absolutely, what a greedy bitch. How dare she want to tell these stories? How dare she boast? And anyone who knows me knows I'm the least boastful person. I'm acutely self-aware of my flaws.
Yeah.
It's probably the only reason people can stand me most of the time. But if that was a man, and I've seen many men with a similar trajectory,
So
what a provider.
successful. Let's
Absolutely.
applaud him. How can we
Genius.
support him?
Yes. And women particularly lose their mind because we are trained to search for providers. He's chasing money and dreams. I'm like, let me follow that. Whereas when a woman does it, who's looking after your kids?
Yeah.
How dare you want more than that?
Like and you've got 6, so where are they all?
Literally.
On the street.
Who's babysitting those? Yeah, for sure. For sure. How dare I? And so it's really interesting that people don't understand when we talk about the patriarchy. They go to the extreme issues, which still very much exist, the derogatory comments that are made at women, the safety issues, but don't often realize that everything in every area of our life is built for a man to succeed, not a woman. We don't even really know what a woman needs to succeed at a professional level. But some of the baseline things start with, we work cyclical. And that's such an interesting lesson we'll build in for another day, that women need to understand their cycle, to understand when is the best time to make decisions, when is the best time to do that. But more so, we can't expect the world to change quickly enough. It's more about just recognizing how your cycle affects your current state and your current mood.
Brain chemistry.
Absolutely.
Emotions.
Yeah.
Everything.
And likewise, if men could understand how their egos and testosterone and gets in the way of them, we would be in a much better space. And there are many
100%.
men out there doing that work that I applaud.
And I also think from the conversation that you mentioned in Big Brother, it also goes down to what works for you and your family.
100%.
Like, it's simple. I don't want to simplify it, but it's simple.
It really is that
Does
simple.
it work for you and your family? Great, amazing.
Yes.
The same thing might not work for me and mine.
Absolutely. For me, that is the essence of today's lesson, and a fantastic segue to getting me back to the point that I need to be on, that gender roles isn't necessarily needing to even include all that information around how men and women work and how women work. And there are pioneers out there, and I'd like to be honoured enough to call myself one of them, who want to do that work and hopefully make it better. But the point of the conversation for every single person is, you should learn to lean into what's right for you, your family, your skills, your passions, your values, regardless of what's dangling between your legs.
Absolutely.
Because when you say it just works, who did it just work for? Because there is nothing to support women will thrive through that time. If anything, quite the opposite.
Also, he's saying his parents were married for 60 years. I bet you if you asked his mum back then if she was happy, she'd say no.
Mate, divorce was flopping illegal. Like, there's some key
She would not have been
pieces.
happy.
Literally. So my grandmother, bless her soul, was in a highly abusive relationship and tells me a story of, she was married to what was the socialite / mayor of a country town,
Right.
who beat the daylights out of her.
Yeah.
And she went to the police station one day, bloodied and bruised, and they told her to clean herself back up and get home before he got mad again. Like, when we say it just worked, we were married 60 years, the women didn't have a choice, Peanut. There are major facts missing from this conversation. And that's part of the reason why I'm so mad. Not because social bias hasn't changed. that's going to take years. That's not that peanut's fault that he hasn't, like, we have so much work to do. But when you are telling stories like that, that my grandmother was married for 6 years and it just works, and you forget to mention that divorce was illegal, come on, you're on national television. Do better.
Agreed.
And I had a really interesting holiday with some dear, dear family friends, and this guy is one of the best human beings I know. In all intents and purposes, he's breaking every rule about man. He is lovely. He is genuine. He's a hard worker. He's a provider. He's a caretaker. He's amazing. But when we got into the nitty-gritties, look, after a couple of gins, around this topic, we ended up in a bit of a Barney about it because he was like, how? Help me understand. But he was so open-minded that by the end of it, he was like, really?
Yeah.
Am I walking on such a red carpet through life? It's like, absolutely.
Yeah.
And most women don't even realise that you are. You know, it's just ingrained into these micro details of our day. And so that's going to take a really long time to change. And there's men out there becoming very aware. But when you see displays like that, as much as that's not ever what I want my space to be, you've got to have a responsibility to go, hey, people, this has to be a learning opportunity.
100%.
There is a lot of context you're choosing to leave out to the, it just works, right back from the caveman days. It just works.
Stupid.
Anyway, just a reminder to open your mind about gender roles. It's got nothing to do with gender. Find out what you enjoy doing, what's right, what's most important to you, and build that into your life as best as you can, regardless of what happens to dangle between your legs or not.
Absolutely. I think that's
all right, that's a wrap. Get me off this pedestal. We are dropping podcasts weekly on all your favourite potty apps, but also on YouTube. If you actually want to come and see our faces, we're over there. Would love you to subscribe.
Scary.
I love hanging out on YouTube. And you can find me on Too Much Jess on TikTok as well. If you've got some stories or topics you want to hear us talk about, send us some comments on any of those platforms and shoot us an email at hello@onegirltoomuch.com.au. We'll see you soon. Thanks,
Bye.
Alex.